If you have old home videos that you want to convert to digital, then USB video capture devices are an inexpensive and popular way to do it. Unfortunately, they all suck. How can I say that with confidence? It's because I subjected these 10 USB video capture devices, ranging in age from the mid-2000s to ones you can buy brand new today, to trial by fire, and they all failed the test. It looks great when viewed directly on the TV, but these capture devices all had different problems when digitizing it, even when using the same software and the same settings. For example, with these very common and cheap EasyCap type devices, such as this one which actually says EasyCap on it, and this one which doesn't, both of which use the UTV-007 chip, the colors are oversaturated and there are diagonal lines across the image. And with the Ion Video to PC, which uses the Trident TV Master TM6010 chip, the video is very soft and washed out, and there's some tearing at the top of the frame. With the Honestech VidBox NW07, which uses the Empia EM28284 chip, for some reason the top part of the image has turned pink. And with this Elgato video capture device, which uses the same Conexant CX23103 chip as a slew of other devices, including the Diamond VC500, Hauppauge USB Live 2, AverMedia EasyMaker 7, August VGB100, and Vixlu DigitNow, the video is overall too dark, and the top half of the frame is skewed to the left. Even with the IOData GV USB 2, which uses the Techwell TW9910 chip and is generally regarded as one of the best affordable USB video capture devices, the video is again too dark, there's some weird greenish banding going on, and the very top of the frame is skewed to the right. And due to their lack of a time-based corrector, all these devices can give you a jittery, wobbly image when attempting to capture video from poorer quality recordings.
The following video cassette is a presentation of Youth Enterprises.
Congratulations on taking your first step to becoming a human calculator. Today in our program, I'll show you guys how to really make math fun, all right?
And on the computer end of things, if it's too slow or gets busy doing something in the background, like those all-important updates, it can drop frames during the capture, causing jerky, stuttery motion.
The fun is about to begin. Ladder assembly instructions.
And that's assuming you can get the damn thing to work at all. For example, while ArcSoft Total Media works perfectly fine with all the other video capture devices I've used, for some reason whenever I try to use it with the VidBox, even though the preview looks perfectly fine, whenever I try to actually start capturing video, it gives me a blue screen of death. And that's on multiple different computers running multiple different versions of Windows. Now I know these devices have their defenders, people who say it works fine for them, and the quality is good enough for their needs.
And they're all ran into the computers using Elgato video capture, which is just a really good budget capture card for what I'm doing here. And it just works. It just does a good job and works really well.
But when you're a professional charging people over $30 per tape to transfer their video, you owe it to your customers to use something higher quality to do it.
Okay, so using Elgato video captures, these are great. It blows my mind when people reach out to me and they say, oh, I've got 46 videotapes. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be about $1,500. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah.
But I'm not just here to complain. I have a solution. I'm using it right now to capture video from a VCR into a Mac. But before I reveal what it is, let's do a little comparison of quality between everyone's favorite USB video capture device and the mystery device. Pay attention to the pinstripes on the shirt on the guy on the left.
I've got a problem and I really need your help. Where do I start?
I think you're going to be the recipient of more free advice than you'll ever know what to do with, and I think the important thing is to keep in mind that generalizations are usually just that. They're generalizations that may work sometime but may not be specific for you.
And I'm a little nervous about what I'm reading, all the new technology and getting up to speed with kind of what's new and what's best for me. I've got a problem and I really need your help. Where do I start?
I think you're going to be the recipient of more free advice than you'll ever know what to do with, and I think the important thing is to keep in mind that generalizations are usually just that. They're generalizations that may work sometime but may not be specific for you.
Now how about some video played from a 1997 Handycam? Again, first with everybody's favorite USB video capture device.
One, two. Hi, you're cute.
Wow. Wait, she wants to take one too.
Did you catch that little glitch near the end where it completely lost sync for a couple of frames? Now let's see how the mystery device handled that video.
Wow. Wow, look at the two of you. Behave, huh?
Where's your flower?
Don't do anything to this boy, huh?
Let's take the picture of the...
You know the parents? Say hello.
Kim. One, two. Hi, you're cute.
Wow. Wait, she wants to take one too.
The mystery device, now shown connected to a PC instead of a Mac since it works with both, handled it perfectly, despite the fact that it's actually an older design than the Video 8 tape I was playing, which is a recording from June 2003, while this was first introduced in 1998. And remember this really wobbly VHS EP tape I showed earlier? Well, here's how the mystery device handled it. And by the way, I have not done any post-processing or other tweaking to any of these video samples. All I've done is de-interlace them and put them directly into iMovie.
The following video cassette is a presentation of Youth Enterprises.
Congratulations on taking your first step to becoming a human calculator. Today in our program, I'll show you guys how to really make math fun, all right? And I'll show you a lot of different ways to get to the right answer. Remember, that's the key today, all right? To get the right answer. Now, to get started, let's get our brains warmed up a little bit.
And here it is, the mystery device, a Sony Digital Video Media Converter, DVMC. The first version was the DVMC DA1, which was introduced in 1998, while this is a slightly updated version, the DVMC DA2, which was introduced in the year 2000. Here it is in the 2001 J&R catalog, and they sold it for $349.99. What we're interested in is its ability to take an analog video source through its composite and S-video inputs and left and right stereo audio inputs and convert it to digital through its DV output, also known as a FireWire port, which is what Apple called it, an iLink port, which is what Sony called it, or IEEE 1394, which was the industry standard name for it. And while you're doing that, it also passes through the video to these composite or S-video outputs, so you can connect it through these outputs to a TV or monitor to have a live preview of the video you're digitizing. One of the main advantages of using the DVMC to capture video versus a USB device is that it has a built-in time-based corrector, which is how it was able to get virtually rock-solid results even from some poor quality unstable video sources. It also has a DV hardware codec converter, which means all the conversion and compression and processing is done in this device, not in your computer, which means there is very low CPU load on your computer when you're using this to transfer video. Therefore, even if you're using a rather old and slow computer, you're highly unlikely to get any dropped frames. Although I believe the DVMC was the first device for converting analog video to DV, it was by no means the only one. On your screen now are the other ones I've come across, not counting professional rack mount models. And yes, if you've heard of using the AV in to DV out pass-through mode of some Digital 8 and Mini DV handycams to digitize analog video sources, then using the DVMC is functionally identical to that, and either one will give you equally good results. For powering the DVMC, it originally came with an AC adapter which puts out 6 volts DC, but I discovered it works perfectly fine on 5 volts, which is the same as what USB puts out, and it uses the same connector as the Sony PSP. So for about $6 you can get a USB charging cable for the PSP, and then you can plug it directly into DVMC and into the USB port on your computer, and that makes a very convenient solution for powering it. And now to complete the setup, all you'll need is a FireWire cable with a 4-pin connector on one end to plug into the DVMC, and then on the other end of the cable, whichever size of connector fits the FireWire port on your computer, either 9-pin, also known as FireWire 800, 6-pin, also known as FireWire 400, or 4-pin, which is what Sony called iLink. Just do not attempt to use a FireWire to USB cable or adapter. These do not work for the purpose of transferring video. If you buy one, it will not work. And if your computer doesn't have a FireWire port, you can often add one, such as by using a PC card or card bus or express card slot on a laptop, or a PCI or PCI Express card on a desktop. If none of those options are available to you, there are ways of adapting FireWire to more modern computers with a Thunderbolt or USB-C port. But my advice is to get an older computer that's ready to go with either a built-in FireWire port or a card slot for adding one. And it doesn't have to be anything even remotely modern. Here's an 800 MHz Apple iBook G4 from 2003, and it works perfectly fine with the DVMC and an old version of iMovie. Once you have everything connected, all you have to do is push the power button to turn it on. And it defaults to the analog input mode. The DV in mode is for doing the opposite, taking a digital video source and converting it to analog. But we want the analog in mode, and the only control you get is holding down the button for a few seconds until the light turns red, which means it's now using 16-bit audio versus 12-bit audio if it's in the green mode. You probably won't ever notice the difference, especially with typical analog video sources like VHS, but if you want the highest possible quality, make sure it's in the 16-bit audio mode indicated by the red LED. And when you turn it off, it will remember its settings as long as power remains applied to it. So now when I turn it back on, the light is red again. The good news is, if you've made it this far, you're pretty much home free. There are no drivers needed and no special software to install and configure. You should be able to just plug it in and it'll work.
Oh, and I've seen it reported that the FireWire drivers were not included in Windows 11 anymore, and that's just not my experience. I plugged FireWire stuff into Windows 11 and it just worked. So I'm not sure where that came from. It was on Wikipedia. My impression is that Windows 10 and 11 do support FireWire natively.
In Windows, the simplest program you can use for capturing video from the DVMC is called WinDV. I'm using it here in Windows 7, but it still works fine in Windows 11. And it's a very simple program. All you have to do is click the capture button to begin capturing video, and it'll tell you if you have any dropped frames, which you shouldn't. And when you're done, just click the capture button again to stop. And although it's no longer supported by Microsoft, you can also still use Windows Movie Maker, the last version of which was part of the Windows Live Essentials 2012 package. You just click on the menu and then Import from Device and hit OK, and then it shows up as Microsoft DV Camera and VCR, and you click on Import and give it a name. And right there you can begin importing your video from the DVMC. And then when you're done importing video, it has all the basic editing functions you need, including trimming, splitting, and joining clips, and adding titles and transitions. And when you're finished editing, just go to Save Movie, and then Recommended for this project, which usually produces perfectly fine results. And you can save it as an MP4 file, which should work with virtually everything these days. Or you can create a custom setting with your choice of resolution and video and audio bit rates.
Fantastic!
On a Mac, the simplest program you can use to capture video is QuickTime Player 7 Pro. If you don't have the Pro version, you can easily find the registration code for it online. You just have to go into Preferences, under Recording, and make sure the video source and microphone are both set to DVMC, and the quality is set to Device Native. Then all you have to do is go to File, New Movie Recording, and click on the big red button, and now you're capturing video.
80 million Americans who belong to the so-called baby boom generation. That's 1/3 of the population.
Then when you're done, just click on the stop button and you can save the file. And it's a MOV file which you can easily edit in iMovie or any other video editor program for the Mac. One piece of commercial software for the Mac that you might want to consider using is called LifeFlix. Its main purpose is to provide an easy and very simple interface for importing video from DV sources, such as the DVMC, some basic editing functions such as trimming clips, and saving and sharing the files. When importing video in LifeFlix, it gives you the option of compressing the video into H.264 format, which does a reasonable job of making the files smaller without causing too much quality loss. But if you uncheck that option, it will import the video in its native full quality DV format. And when you're finished importing video, you can trim the clip by dragging the sliders at the beginning and end of the little bar here. And you can also split the clip. If you find like a gap between two scenes, just click on Split, and that splits it into two different files. And it also lets you select multiple clips and combine them together.
Now, the LifeFlix software is not cheap. It's about $100 at the time I'm recording this video, but I do think there's a good value proposition here for people like me with a box full of tapes to convert, because you can pop a tape in, walk away, come back, combine the clips you want, archive them, and move on to the next tape. And that, to me, has some value.
A few additional details that may be of interest to you. Unfortunately, the DVMC is not multi-system. As it said on the side of the original box, it is for NTSC only. And as far as I can tell, Sony did not make a PAL version of it. It automatically switches between the composite and S-video inputs depending on which one is plugged in, except if both are plugged in simultaneously, in which case it will prioritize the S-video input. If you try to use the DVMC to digitize a video source that is Macrovision encoded, the Protect indicator LED will come on, indicating it is detecting that Macrovision encoding, and at least according to Sony, this should prevent you from transferring it to a PC. but that has never inhibited my ability to do so using any of the software I've ever tried. That Macrovision encoding may cause some brief brightness fluctuations as the capture device compensates for those Macrovision encoding pulses, but otherwise it doesn't seem to affect the quality or stability of the video you capture. And the one new feature of the DVMC DA2 that was not found on the original DA1 model is the LANC jack, which stands for Local Application Control, and it allows you to control the playback functions of a compatible camcorder with a LANC jack on it, a feature mostly found on Sony and some Canon models. You need a 2.5mm tip ring sleeve cable, similar to what some TI calculators used to transfer data. You plug one into the DVMC and one into your camcorder. And now you can use your computer to control an analog camcorder just as if it was a digital camcorder, including rewind, stop, play.
You can also adjust electronically to give you true color.
Pause, play again,
This is called white.
fast forward search, and reverse search. So it's very handy.
Incandescent or fluorescent lights, and then you move outside, the color balance, which is...
I hesitated on finishing this video because I know I'm going to get complaints about how the DVMC is such an old device and FireWire no longer works with the latest CPUs and operating systems, and surely technology must have improved since then. There must be some kind of USB video capture device that you can just plug in and use and get equally good results as this old DVMC. So I acquired a whole bunch of other ones, 3 of which I found at thrift stores and 2 of which I bought on eBay. I already knew the Diamond VC500 was based on the same hardware as the Elgato, and sure enough it works equally as poorly, just with the added benefit of a recording button on the device itself and a blindingly bright blue LED whenever you have it plugged in. This Roxio VHS to DVD 3, which is based on the Ampia 28281 chip, found a new way to screw up the fireplace tape by turning the top of the image a sickly green. This Pinnacle Movie Box has a very useful trick up its sleeve which I may demonstrate in a future video, but as for its main purpose of capturing analog video, unfortunately it flunked the fireplace test with extremely bad tearing. These teardrop-shaped Dazzle USB video capture devices generally have a good reputation, and this DVC-130 model has the added benefit of hardware MPEG-2 compression. Unfortunately, 64-bit drivers for it do not exist, but I thought that's no problem. I have plenty of old Windows XP computers I could use it with. And yes, you can install the driver, but then what? I couldn't get it to work with any of the video capture software I tried. This nondescript looking Dell device, which is actually a rebranded Luminate Wave combination digital TV tuner and video capture device, turned out to be the most promising. It also has hardware MPEG-2 compression, but unlike the Dazzle, 64-bit drivers do exist and are automatically loaded by Windows, and it worked perfectly fine with ArcSoft Total Media. And of all the USB devices I've tried, this was the only one which was able to capture the fireplace tape almost perfectly with no major flaws. Unfortunately, when I moved on to the sailboat tape, the footage was ruined by constant tearing and glitching.
They know a lot more than us buyers who lots of times stroll down the dock and fall in love with what turns out to be just a pretty face. So listen to these guys. They'll save you time, they'll save you money, and best of all, they'll help you find the boat that's right for you.
And yes, adding a time-based corrector can mitigate many of the problems with USB video capture devices, but they can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars, while the DVMC has one built in. And as you've seen, even when USB video capture devices are able to get a stable image, the DVMC still outperforms them in image quality. So when you can get a DVMC for as low as $20 on eBay, I think it's a no-brainer. And yes, Digital 8 and Mini DV Handycams with the DV pass-through mode will function identically to the DVMC and can serve a useful double purpose if you have those formats of tape to transfer, but good luck finding one for anywhere close to that price, even with a broken tape mechanism. And yes, these days there is the alternate route of converting analog video to HDMI and then capturing the video from that, which is something I have tried in the past with okay results. But these USB HDMI capture devices are well known for dropping frames, even on a fast computer, so for the best results you want to have a desktop PC with an HDMI capture card installed. And if you're going to do that, then why not install a FireWire card? And most HDMI converters stretch out everything to widescreen, requiring workarounds to restore the correct aspect ratio. So by no means am I saying the DVMC is the best quality video capture device you can get. I'm just saying for the average person, for the price, it's hard to beat. Especially if you have an older computer with a FireWire port, or know someone who has one they don't need anymore, you can put it to good use capturing video. Now I have a pile of useless USB video capture devices, and the sudden urge to buy a sailboat.
Sometimes it's tough to make that final decision. I just have one final thought for you. Next year that boat's going to be more money, and you're going to be a year older, so just do it.